And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir.
Well, because I'm not going to be on your other show later, congratulations on episode 900. That is insane. I don't think that I have collectively even come close to half of that for the amount of shows. Just I have 3 different shows that I do that I have hosted. 900. How many
900 episodes. Relaunched the podcast in 2020 during COVID because I didn't have anything to do. And you know what's funny is we've gained a platform. Like, I wasn't in media. I didn't want to be in it. I mean, I had broken some stories on things and people didn't put a face to a name. And then now we are here at episode 900 in a new studio, by the way.
But was that intentional or was that like indirect that happened?
I mean, it was intentional.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. I mean, somewhat intentional. And by the way, Bayou Jesus is always looking over in Joe Burrow.
I appreciate how angelic that image of Joe Burrow looks. It's a good. I like the new setup. We were tinkering with it earlier to make sure it all looked good. I'm excited. Onward for the next 900.
Yeah, onward for the next 900. And I will tell you, I you know why I numbered them?
So you could count.
No, because I didn't know like how. I just like, well, I don't know how to count. Like, how do I save like audio and
right
all the way back then when it was just me? You know what is funny though, man? In all seriousness, all of this started from a TV tray, an ice cube or iceberg microphone, and a laptop. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but it's been fun. And like you said, hopefully one day, maybe we should start, tallying up the Ruffino and Joe.
Too much work. We're already too deep.
That's what she
just
said.
Have to guess. Okay.
Yeah, that's what she said. All right. But nevertheless, we got tons and tons to get here to tonight, Joe. Deion Sanders in the news already saying that his son would have been the number 2 quarterback in this past year's draft. We'll talk on that. Also said that he was in the interview and said that he knows where his son and Travis Hunter will go, that they will pick where they want to go. Yeah, good luck with that. We will talk on that. But when you heard that from Deion, your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I'm shocked that during the offseason, when we need things to talk about, here comes Deion Sanders with a quote that we can all latch onto. I mean, he's been in the headlines for the past 3 weeks. There was also the headline that apparently he's never taken an in-home visit, which that's understandable because of his health issues. I think that one got a little bit blown out of proportion. Like, it's not going to be super easy for him to go on some of these trips. And I think it's a testament to how good of a recruiter he is. But this other thing, man, like him saying that they're going to pull an Eli and pick where he's going to go. I don't think that the NFL world is the same way that it was back when Eli made that decision. And nor do I think that there's really any teams that next year that are going to be picking where they are, that they're going to need to be so worried that they have to avoid them. I think it's a bit much. That's kind of my tease to what I'm going to say.
Okay. I do disagree with one thing. I do think that he is a part of the family because look, Peyton Manning and Eli, I mean, they weren't who they were. I mean, when they didn't have the cachet that they had, okay, to make the move with Eli the way that they did when they did it. Now they have the cachet. So if they did that for Arch, it's just how the Mannings do business. Is Deion Sanders in that same kind of family and category, Joe, that can make a move like this? That would be the ultimate question.
Yeah.
I think he can get one. I think that he can place somewhat where his son goes. In reference to Travis Hunter, first come, first serve. He's only going to get one of them, and he's going to pick his son where he's playing quarterback.
Yeah, it's a little bit much to assume that you can probably pull out both, especially because Travis Hunter is probably going to be somebody that a team trades up for. Like, he's that type of a prospect. I just think it's awfully ambitious to assume that you're going to have that much pull to dictate the draft order. It's a lot.
It is a lot. So we'll discuss a little bit about that. Also, our top 5 position coaches currently in college football.
Yes, it's time to start talking about real football. Start talking about our
Thank God.
I know it feels like it's been forever. I think when May comes around, we're going to really hit the ground running with those deep dives that we did last offseason that were very popular. But if anyone recalls, we had some fun sharing our top offensive coordinators, top defensive coordinators. We did not do position coaches, so I thought that this could be an interesting way to get the ball rolling.
I do agree. There are some really good ones out there, some real stars that are starting to rise here. I do think that there are some that people have no idea who they are, but by the end of the show, number one, they will know. And number two, I think that some of them know, like, hey, like, so for example, there's a guy at Ohio State that recruits wide receivers really well. He's going to have to be on your list, and Brian Hartline, right? That's got to be one.
He might not. He may or may not be on my list.
Joe, if you left off Brian Hartline as a position coach, I think I'm going to ban you. You can't deny what he's doing.
I had to swap him out for two. I had two other receivers coaches that I wanted to put on there.
Is Cortez Hankton one of them?
We'll have to see if Cortez Hankton made the list. We'll have
Cortez
to find
Hankton
out.
made the list. Cortez Hankton.
I'm not going to reveal anything. I was a little. I was rubbed the wrong way. Not rubbed the wrong way. That's not the way I want to phrase this.
False.
My only issue with Brian Hartline was that he was handed this opportunity to be an offensive coordinator, and that went horribly wrong. Like did not go well at all. Production for some of his receivers even went down, which was notable. He's a great recruiter.
In fairness, well, he's developed some really good wide receivers too. In fairness, it's not all on him when you basically told the quarterback that was starting that he had to hit the road and you had to go get another one. That's not all on him now.
I understand that. I'd put him at 6. He goes right at 6 for me. I think that is perfectly reasonable.
You know, if this were this time last year, you know who we would have had on this that's now a head coach?
Fran Brown?
Maybe, but no.
Who?
Sharon Moore.
Yeah. Well, because he got promoted to OC though, so yeah, kind of. I don't know if he would have been in the conversation. That was the tricky part about putting this list together because there's so many coordinators that are really good position coaches, so it's a little tricky trying to make that differentiation.
Yeah, because they are still technically position coaches at the end of the day too, so you have to put it in there. Also, not all we'll talk about Caleb Williams.
But we have to have the debate. We're a month away from the draft.
What debate?
You are the one who made the statement yesterday that you think he's going to be a bust and that he's not worth the first overall pick. Okay, well, let's get into it at the end of the show.
All right. Well, he's a bust. It has nothing to do with on the field.
I think that his
gives me Johnny Manziel vibes.
But he's a way better player than Johnny Manziel. I think that
cocaine is cocaine. It doesn't matter how good he is. He's wearing dresses on the cover of GQ. Like we're gonna act like that's not a problem.
Yeah, but he's not a drunk and a drug addict like Johnny Manziel was. I think that it's a little bit easier to tell that one guy has his head on straight and is focused, and the other one clearly was not focused. I think the off the field stuff's a little overblown. So we'll save that for the end.
Fair. All right, let's get to it, Joe. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share if you're on Facebook. Hit that like button, hit that share button, share to all of your social media pages, share to all of those groups as well. If you're watching us, listening to us on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Joe, let's talk about our good friends over at BetOnline. So many people going over to betonline.ag for March Madness. Use the promo code BELIEVE50. That's BELIEVE50, BLEAV50 to receive a 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That way that they know that Blake and Joe sent you on by. Let's get to our first break. Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders in the news. We talk about that next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events. with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
We're back.
That we are, Joe. All right, let's get to it. Joe, Deion Sanders was in the news this week or this past week in reference to he was on a podcast and a lot of it got taken out of context and you got to go listen to it. But essentially what he said was that in a nutshell, or what he was trying to say is that Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders are going to be 2 top 4 picks in next year's NFL draft. He also said they're going to pick where they go. Now, what led to a lot of that is some of the stuff that people started comparing and debating on with Shedeur Sanders and Deion. Would they be Arch Manning and Eli Manning? Arch and Eli Manning. Joe, I do think that there are families in the NFL, legacy families in the NFL, that could potentially pull off some stuff like this. Could they, like the Mannings did? I do think Deion could pull it off. I don't think that he's lying. I 1,000% think that if Deion called Jerry Jones and said, hey, man, Dak ain't signing that extension, you're not paying him. Shedeur wants to be a Cowboy. You know he wants to be a Cowboy. Move up. Go get him. I 1,000% could see that happening. I 1,000% could see it happening with him saying, we're not going there. We're not playing there. We'll do something else. He'll come back to school. We'll do whatever we got to do. I just don't think that – I do think that he is a family, or they are a family that could pull something like that off. But I do think that you mentioned something that's very critical in the open. The NFL is a different beast now. And I just don't know, okay, if in today's world and society, it could be pulled off. But even though I think he could do it for one, I think he can do it for Shedeur. And I think he will because he's a quarterback and it's his son. The whole thing with Travis Hunter, cry me a river. People are going to pick him no matter what. I'll give you one. I ain't giving you 2. You're not picking where you're going in the NFL. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen.
Well, okay, so first of all, with just to quickly get Travis Hunter out of the way, I mean, there's a high actual potential that the guy, there's a potential that this prospect, this kid could go and be the number 1 overall pick.
Do you really think a receiver and a corner would go number 1?
I think that because of the quarterback class not being like as elite and not having a Joe Burrow, a Caleb Williams, a Trevor Lawrence, not having one of those guys could open the door for that. I think a lot of NFL teams are going to look at him and say this could be a franchise-changing prospect. I think it's going to be really hard to command that level of demand in order to have both of these guys pick the destination that they want to go play for. I think, just to address the capability of this, if there is a player in the next 10 years that could pull this off and make such a demand, it would be Shedeur Sanders. Because of not only are you drafting a franchise quarterback, and he will be a first-round pick. I've seen a lot of slappies on Twitter that have said, look, Shedeur Sanders isn't going to be a first-round pick. He is very gifted. He's very athletic. He made chicken salad out of chicken shit last year with how inconsistent their offense was and no offensive line. He's a very gifted player. But the biggest part to this, the right owner, team owner, is going to see we can become the most marketable franchise in the NFL. So I absolutely think that they could come to the table, and whoever's picking in the top 3 that wants to draft him and say, don't take us, or we're not going to play for you if they do draft him, because they have all of the negotiating power here. They have way more negotiating power than a typical quarterback prospect would, because it's not just on the field, It's the off the field marketability and the dollars that are going to come with it, with the attention that he brings if he starts to play really good. I will say this, though. I just don't think that this is something that is realistic to pull off, because at the end of the day, and he brought up, Deion Sanders brought up in on the podcast, a lot of the places that he played, he deems to be good destinations for his son. And he brought up San Francisco, he brought up Dallas, Washington, and Baltimore. There is a very low chance that an established franchise that has a good foundation, that has a winning culture, is going to be within striking distance of being able to make a trade to move up to go take Shedeur Sanders. It's highly unrealistic. It's very, very unrealistic, because all of those teams probably have a quarterback, like the examples that he presented, all have quarterbacks, and they'd have to mortgage a ridiculous future, all of their future first-round picks, in order to get in that position to take him. Why would you want to get drafted by a team that doesn't have multiple first-round picks? The team's going to stink that you're on. You're handicapping the team that you're going to play for by doing this.
Unless, there's a team at number one that they don't want to go to, and they flip-flop quarterbacks, like what happened with New York and San Diego with Eli and Phillip.
Now, I wonder what the rest of that.
No, they just flipped.
But what else did they trade?
I don't think anything. If memory serves me correctly, it was just a fair trade. You get Phillip Rivers, we get Eli Manning.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So let me just say this. I do agree with you on a lot of the points that you made. I do think that he's a first round quarterback. However, first overall, because I got to be real with you, Carson Beck says hi.
Yeah,
I mean,
don't.
The number one quarterback prospect right now in the country is not Shedeur Sanders.
Carson Beck.
It's Carson Beck. So you can talk all that you want to and say Shedeur is number one. The hell he is. You might be able to pick where you're going later in the first round. I like Shedeur. I think he's going to be a number 2, number 3 quarterback. Okay, unless he has an ridiculous year. But, Joe, do not kid yourself on who leads the draft class in this one. It's not Travis Hunter. It is not Shedeur Sanders. Right now, going into the season, it is Carson Beck and then everybody else.
And also, more importantly, there's one individual in next year's draft that has the ability to completely blow this whole thing up. And like Cam Ward. Cam Ward is the most gifted prospect, and if things go as good as they possibly can this year, if he has a Jaden Daniels type of a season where new destination and play,
I know what you're saying.
But like new destination plays his ass off, explodes, he'd be the first overall pick. You don't think so?
I don't know.
It's on tape.
He's the Walmart version instead of he's the Coca-Cola version of Lindsey Scott.
No, Lindsey Scott's the Coca-Cola version of him. What do you? Come on, Lindsey Scott was tiny.
Cam Ward is the Coca-Cola version of Lindsey Scott.
Oh, I misunderstood.
Yeah, well, way over your head.
Sorry, I misunderstood what you said. He's Walmart Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, calm down. Yeah, let me tell you what you NFL guys got to stop doing. Y'all got to stop comparing people to Patrick Mahomes.
I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah, y'all are idiots. There's nobody on the planet right now like Patrick Mahomes. There might be one.
And who's
who he is?
Caleb Williams?
Patrick Mahomes. Caleb Williams is not a good comp to him. Y'all need to stop with that garbage. Look, here's something that I want to dive a little bit deeper into here, okay, with Deion. Also, that was a part of that podcast, Joe, was him saying that he never took in-home visits. That's a problem.
Was that in the podcast that he brought that up? I know that was.
I thought it was. I thought that's where it all generated from.
It was a separate. I think it was. Yes, but that has been a recent headline.
Okay, regardless of where it happened, that's not my point. My point is that he says that he doesn't take in-home visits. well, then you're just proving to me that, I mean, you're proving a lot of things to me because, listen, if he's not going to do it at Colorado, then what gives me any confidence that he can do it in the SEC? Now, maybe he doesn't want to. Maybe he doesn't want to come to the SEC. I don't know. Here's what I do know, okay? If you want to be up there with Saban, like what he thought or where he thinks he is, if you want to be up there with Kirby, if you want to be up there with, hell, Brian Kelly, if you want to be up there with Ryan Day or whoever it is, Joe, he better start taking in-home visits, because if he doesn't get the dudes, he's going to have, at some point, he's going to have to start recruiting in high school. He can't keep going to the portal every year. I mean, it's a massive issue. He better start taking in-home visits, because if he doesn't, they're going to stay the same.
I will give him some benefit of the doubt with this, because, again, he did serious medical issue that he's dealt with his foot, and I just don't know like what that has done for him and his ability to, travel at the level that he would need to go take these visits. But I will say that there should be concern with this, though.
What are you doing when every other head coach in the country is going in-home visits? What is he doing?
Well, he's done a good job without the in-home visits of recruiting, but this year's past cycle,
did you see
that was what I was getting to. So the previous cycle, they had a really good recruiting class, and it's kind of shocking to consider that he's never taken an in-home visit and that he was able to pull the guys that he did. But this past class of 2024 was terrible. It was really not good. They had a couple nice players, but it was in the lower ranks on most recruiting platforms, and it wasn't a very big class, hence why they went so aggressively in the transfer portal. I think that there does need to be some changes here. He does need to eventually figure out how he can start taking those in-home visits. I don't know what his lack of desire to take them are. I wonder if it's all just medical.
Okay. If there are medical reasons why he can't go on in-home visits, he doesn't need to be the head coach of any Power 5 university. You know what else? He sure as hell doesn't have issues or medical issues when money's on the line and he's doing things with Nick Saban for Aflac. So there's no excuse about not going in home. It is lazy. It is bona fide laziness that you are not recruiting in high school and going in home. It is, quite honest, Joe, if any other coach in the country did not do in-home visits, not only would the fan base want him fired, okay, they would run him out themselves.
So the full quote, it was an article that was published, and then after, it was USA Today, and then afterwards he made a comment at a press conference. There was an article that came out that said, "I don't go on visits. My approach is totally different than any coach's approach. I'm a businessman as well. So I try to save our university money every darn chance I get. For me to go to, let's say I'm going to Florida, I'm visiting IMG. You don't think those coaches are going to be a little bit upset if I don't come by the school down the street?" It's a weird excuse. I don't disagree. I think that was a really weird.
And go down to the school that you go to the next school too.
Look, maybe the simplest part about this is he's just got too much going on. He's got the TV show. He's got and I'm not saying that's a good reason. I think that his priorities might not be where they need to be.
Then there is where where the road meets the rubber. All right? The road meets the rubber with Deion. Look, I love Deion. And what gets misconstrued in all this is that I'm not a fan of him. Remember last year, okay? Week 1, who was rooting for chaos? Who was rooting for Colorado? This guy.
You picked TCU. You picked
No, I didn't.
TCU.
No, I did not.
You did. You picked TCU. You did not pick Colorado.
I'm 1,000% sure that I said I wanted
TCU.
Colorado to win.
But we still both picked TCU to win.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. The bottom line, though, is if this were any other coach in the country, Joe, we would be calling for them to be fired. He isn't every coach in the country. I love Deion. I love what he's doing, but there comes a point that he's got to be held accountable for his inaction and laziness.
I don't like using the word lazy for this.
Then
I
what
think
is
that's
it?
I just think of an inability to prioritize what's important as a head coach. I think that he's trying to be too different and he's trying to do all these different things. And like the word business to me is kind of the indicator there.
Well, you know what it also indicates to me?
What?
That every recruiting thing that he's done is about business.
Well, okay. And I also will add this. He didn't come up the ranks like other coaches have. He didn't start out as a GA and work his way up. He was immediately granted
that
a head
doesn't
coaching
excuse
gig.
him.
That's not an excuse, though.
him.
I'm just explaining that he probably doesn't perceive it as an important action for him in order to get the job done. He probably thinks that he can do it without it.
What are his position coaches doing? Joe, again, he wants to be, per what he said, he wants to be with the big dogs. He wants to be at the big-time universities. Well, the bottom line is, okay, he was about to get passed over again at Florida State, all right? Because if Mike Norvell would have moved on and went to Alabama, they weren't going after Deion Sanders. You know why they aren't going after Deion Sanders? It's not because of anything that Deion does. It's that he doesn't take it, quite honestly, like every other head coach in the country does. Joe, if I came out tomorrow and said, Joe, Marcus Freeman is not taking an in-home visit in 6 months, what would you do?
Well, he's recruiting his ass off, so I'd be like, well, maybe this is a new strategy.
I didn't ask you that. If I told you that Marcus Freeman
important.
Huh?
Wait. If you're telling me that Marcus Freeman has never taken an in-home visit, I'd be like, cool. It's amazing that he's managed to pull that off because he's had an unbelievable recruiting classes the past.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes, I would. Yes, I absolutely would.
No, you wouldn't. You know what you would have done?
What?
We have the same recruiting classes as Brian Kelly. He's no better than Brian Kelly is. You're averaging the same amount of composite score rating than Brian Kelly is. Don't act like anything's different.
I wouldn't feel like he's doing anything. If he was able to accomplish what he's accomplishing without taking in-home visits, I would argue that's
missing the point of what I'm saying.
Well, it was a bad example. It was a bad example.
Forget who he's getting. If he had struggles and he wasn't in the top 5, he wasn't in the top 6, and he wasn't doing in-home visits, you would say he needs to get his ass in home. That's where he's losing big-time recruits. You would say that. Don't act like you wouldn't.
Yeah, if the recruiting was shit, yeah, I'd probably say that. I don't think this is it's a good example, but I understand what you're saying. Look, I don't disagree with you. I think that if this upcoming recruiting cycle, the 2025 class, is bad for Colorado again, then we can legitimately sit here and say, okay, bad. He has to change his recruiting approach.
It's going to be bad, and I will tell you,
he probably won't even be at Colorado at the end of the season.
Well, there you go. You know what this is about.
Yeah.
All right. That's fine. All right. You want to get to the top 5 position coaches?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Joe. So we did this all season, and now we get to actually start talking about some football here, even in early March. Yes. Please, God. I'm so tired of realignment. I'm so tired of all these different rule changes, NIL and Saban talking about the portal. Get off my lawn. Joe, tonight's topic, we're talking about the top 5 position coaches. Now, we talked about this in the intro. Are you seriously about to leave off Brian Hartline in your top 5 of position coaches?
I don't think it's ridiculous to leave off a guy who was an offensive coordinator last year and transitioned back. I don't think that's he wasn't primarily just a position coach last year.
Okay, well, the first person, and this is in no specific order, Joe, without question, a top 3 position coach in the country is Brian Hartline. It's not even remotely close.
I mean, I don't disagree. I think that he's a great position coach, and he's developed some elite wide receivers.
Position coaches.
He's number 6 for me. He's right on the outside, 6 or 7 for me. I think that there are other coaches who this past year had more impactful. And actually, I'd even go as far as to say they've had, in a 2-year span, all of these coaches I can name had impactful developments of some of the top players in the country, the recruiting of top prospects in the country, and then the development of younger guys that are going to be important players at their positions in the upcoming season. Brian Hartline is a great coach, and we talked about him last year. And I said that I thought he was going to be a great offensive coordinator, and I fucking whiffed on that. I was so wrong on that. Couldn't have been any more wrong on Brian Hartline thinking he could have been a good offensive coordinator. But I don't think it's unfair to rank some of these other guys ahead of him who have arguably done more with a little bit less. Want to hear my list? Want to hear my list?
I love you. I love you. Okay. I really do. There are probably 2 or 3 things where I ultimately don't see the position that you're coming from. This has got to be probably a top 2 works take.
All right. I'm going to give you my list here.
Okay? All right. Give me your list.
This is, we'll do an actual ordering and we'll do the graphics for the other ones. But I think because of the wide range of opinions that come with this, these are guys that I think are the top 5 that fit in the conversation.
Okay.
Mike Mickens from Notre Dame, defensive backs coach. Cortez Hankton, LSU wide receivers coach.
With you there.
Todd Hartley, Georgia's tight end coach.
God damn it.
Jamarcus Shepard.
Have a lot of the same people.
Okay. Jamarcus Shepard, Alabama's wide receiver coach that was pulled from Washington. And then Travaris Robinson, Georgia's defensive backs coach. It's a lot. It's the same list, is it not?
It's the same list.
You had all 5. Wait, so you don't even have Brian Hartline on your list?
But I actually have Brian Hartline at my number 1.
Oh, I'm not that bullish.
Oh, I'm very much that bullish. And to be real with you, my number 2 is Cortez Hankton. And I don't know, Joe, if I really, and look, people are going to say Blake is just an LSU guy. I could make the argument that Cortez Hankton needs to be number 1 because he's going to have Ladd McConkey, Adonai Mitchell, okay? He's going to have Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas all in this draft. Oh, by the way, you know who was the lead recruiter for Brock Bowers?
Okay, it's Cortez Hankton.
Joe, here's what might happen just in this upcoming NFL draft. Joe, he might have 4 or 5 guys that he recruited be first-round picks in one class. Now, it's not even the reason I put Brian Hartline, okay, at number 1 is because it's been more sustained in reference to receivers that he's put into the league. Development and putting dudes into the league. That's why I have remained him at number 1. Everything else that we had is in order. Okay, pretty much after that. The only thing for me, too, is I think Brian Hartline from a recruiting and development standpoint, Joe, I mean, what else are we supposed to do here? Because not only is his guys producing on the field in college, they're producing at the next level at an extremely high rate.
That's fair.
I don't even know if he called the plays last year. If he was fully over the play calling, I do debate why Ryan Day's got a play card.
Okay, that's a fair point. And I'm not holding that against him. I'm not holding that against him. Look, wait. The way that I look at this is I'm not putting 3 wide receivers. I don't want to put 3 wide receivers coach on this list.
There it is.
That he did. No. But I think that Cortez Hankton, for what you just brought up, justifies him being ahead of Brian Hartline. You just talked about all of the guys that he's had influence on that are just coming out in just this year's draft alone. Malik Neighbors wasn't even like a high recruit. He wasn't like the number 1 recruit in his class. He took it was a low 4-star, mid 4-star. Malik Neighbors.
He was a 3-star all the way until he flipped from Mississippi State to LSU. They gave him a 4-star because he went to LSU. That's all.
So Malik Neighbors develops him into a top 10 pick. Brian Thomas Jr. wasn't even on anybody's radar until this past season, and he exploded onto the scene. And then there's been other guys that he's had the opportunity to work with that have rapidly developed. But Jamarcus Shepard, what he did in the development of the guys that he had at Washington, none of those guys were premier recruits. Jalen McMillan, Rome Odunze, and Jalen Polk, none of those 3 guys were top recruits in any stratosphere. They were a 3-star in that range. They were good receiver recruits, relatively good receiver recruits. He turned Rome Odunze into a guy that's going to be a top 15 pick. Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan are going to be day 2 picks. All three of them are good enough to go on to be productive in the NFL, but most importantly, they were all 1,000-yard receivers. That to me is a signal of really good coaching and development to take not premier top recruits, because your school can't necessarily attract those kids, and you got 1,000-yard production out of them in one season where all three of them had 1,000 yards.
Let me checkmate you right quick, okay, please.
Oh no. Okay, go ahead.
So last week we talked about who was going to be breakout players. Who was your number one player that was going to have a breakout year?
He wasn't my number one, but I did bring up Jeremiah Smith.
Oh, interesting. Who recruited him?
Again, you're acting like I'm saying that Brian Hartline sucks. I didn't say that. I'm not saying that.
I got to be real with you. There's a coach in your top 5 that you have to take out.
Mickens?
You got to take out Mickens.
Absolutely not. Mickens has been, anyone who follows coaching circles has been constantly brought up as a riser in the coaching world. The defensive back recruiting for Notre Dame has been the best position group outside of offensive line. And he turned Benjamin Morrison and Cam Hart into the better cornerbacks in college football this past year. Cam Hart is going to go on to be a top 100 draft pick in this year's class. Benjamin Morrison, he took guys that Brian Kelly's crop of DBs, that none of them were premier recruits, and turned them into elite football players. Mickens deserves to be on there as one of the bright young defensive minds in college football. He's going to get hired away as a DC somewhere.
All right. Hold on. Joe, you lost 3 games last year, and in one of those games I will give you, it would appear that Mickens, okay, what they did better athletically against a team like Ohio State. However, when the game was on the line, they gave up a 4th and 19. And you didn't play enough athletic teams, enough athletic dudes for you to come out here and tell me that they're really good. They ain't playing no goddamn body. Joe, if they played against Washington with the receivers that they have, if they played against LSU, they would have gotten torched.
No, okay, that is...
You mean to tell me that Dane Daniels would not have torched that secondary? You're a damn fool.
No. That is a over-assumption that they would have gotten cooked.
They would have gotten roasted. Do you ever go to Walmart?
No, there's no Walmarts in LA.
Is that true?
Yeah, you got to drive like an hour. It's probably was the biggest culture shock for me when I moved out here.
Okay, do y'all have convenience stores?
Yeah,
or like shopping stores?
Uh-huh.
You know how a lot of those like shopping, like Walmarts or whatever, have like rotisserie chickens? That would have been Notre Dame's DB room.
The ball knowers know of Coach Mickens. Those who know ball know Mike Mickens. Can we? But I know that I want to talk about some of these other guys.
Okay, let's go to a couple more.
Todd Hartley. Todd Hartley is probably one of the most underrated
without
position coaches. His Brock Bowers development. Again, the thing that I focus on, I maybe this is why I don't have Brian Hartline as high, is because I almost don't really give a shit if you go and grab the top kids and then you spit them out into NFL draft prospects. I like the fact that Brock Bowers wasn't like one of the top tight end recruits in his class, was not unknown, but comes all the way from Napa, California. And you bring him in and you turn him into one of the greatest tight end prospects that's ever come out into the NFL draft. But more importantly, able to attract Benjamin Urasek in the transfer portal. And he's able to go and recruit some of the best tight end recruits over the past couple of years. The depth in this room is unbelievable. It is the best tight end room in the country. And it's going to stay that way.
Has been for quite some time. Right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, it's not like this is new. I do agree with you there, okay, in reference to him. The only thing, though, is that tight end in that offense is very much featured. My question would be, if he was anywhere else in the country, would he have that same success? because the tight end is so much featured in that specific offense. Joe, it's like a wide receiver going to play for Kalen DeBoer right now, or Cortez Hankton, or a wide receiver going to Ohio State. It's just because I think they're so featured and he's at Georgia, that's benefiting him just a little bit more than what people are giving that credit for.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I also, by the way,
I don't like. So I'm just going to use even if he was at Notre Dame, Joe, like when Kelly was at Notre Dame, shit, even now, okay,
they still recruit some of the top.
They still recruit some of the top tight ends. Why? Because it's prestigious for a tight end to go to that place. I just question, and so for that reason alone, I think that there's guys at Florida State that should be on this, right? I think John Popicius should be on this list. The DN's coach, by the way, was on Saban's staff multiple times, okay, as an intern. He was an intern at LSU for 2004 to 2007. He went with Bo Pelini to Nebraska. He was at North Carolina for a damn good while. Then goes and look what he's doing with guys like Jared Verse, and look what he's doing at defensive end for Florida State. I do think that there's other coaches that might need to be above him, but the one thing that kept me there with him was Joe. I mean, he is killing he is the position, right? I mean, and the only other tight end coach that I think that would compare to him is the Notre Dame offensive coordinator. That's the only other one in the country that's recruiting tight ends the way that he is.
I almost put him on there to mess with you. By the way, I misspoke. Brock Bowers was the number 2 tight end in the class. Misspoke, but nobody really.
Who was number 1?
That's actually a really good question. Is there a way I can?
That would be
Thomas Fedoni.
Who
is in Nebraska.
Oh, well, nobody knows who goes to Nebraska.
I have, God, this tight end class was terrible. None of these guys panned out.
And he got the best one. He just so happened to be 230 pounds.
But my point is though that no one thought that Brock Bowers was going to be like Heisman conversation good. No one thought that he could have been as explosive as he's been. I want to also bring up, though, you brought up, I'm shocked that Travaris Robinson's not your number 1 guy.
T-Rob is at number 3 for me.
I had him I did rank these, but I didn't want to share my ranking for some reason because I'm a coward. But I had him at number 1. The consistency.
Okay,
I mean,
well, let me tell you my thoughts on T-Rob. Joe, they got smoked a couple of times this year, and this isn't the first time. Now, DB at Bama is a little bit different because Saban has his hands all in it. He's gonna have his hands all up in that. Okay,
that I will accept. That I will accept.
So, what is he like? Does he fall back to some South Carolina days? I mean, he's got Kirby, and he's going to get Kirby type talent. My only thing now is he doesn't have Saban with him. All right, and Joe, to be real with you, he got cooked by Cortez Hankton. And to be honest with you, that DB room, okay, would be cooked by Ohio State. Just bottom. I love T-Rob. And that's the reason he's number 3. But he is getting massively out-coached from a developmental piece. Joe, who's the number 1 corner this year?
In the draft?
Yeah.
Nate Wiggins. Quinyon Mitchell.
Hold on. Nate Wiggins.
Yeah,
correct?
From Clemson, and then Quinyon Mitchell.
Hold on.
Okay.
Where's Nate Wiggins from?
Clemson.
Phoenix City, Alabama, is it not?
I don't know. I don't know exactly where he's from, so that you're probably right. Let me look it up.
You can bean count me on that. You can't miss.
No, wait, he's Atlanta.
I thought he played in Alabama.
Let me see if I can find his.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misremembering.
I think he might be. I think he's a Georgia guy.
Okay, maybe I'm misremembering. That's on me. Forgive me. T-Rob has gotten some really good players though. Like Caleb Downs is a big deal, but here's another thing: he couldn't get he couldn't get Caleb Downs to Georgia.
That's obviously a big
mean-
swing and a miss. Big swing and a miss there. I will say though, I almost look beyond the recent group of Alabama DBs that are coming into the draft, which they're about to have 2 first-rounders in Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold. They were unbelievable this year.
No doubt. I mean, I'm still why he's number 3 for me.
Best corner duo in college football this past year. But like I look at the development of a guy like J.C. Horn. Again, guys that aren't on the radar nationally, you have the chance to work with them. You turn them into a top 10 pick. That is really damn good coaching. He's brilliant coach.
I agree. I mean, I have to put down on him and why I got him at number 3, but I had to go, Joe. I had to go number 1, Hartline. I had to go 2, Cortez Hankton. I had to go 3, T-Rob. And I don't think that that's a slight at all.
No.
You better be glad. You better be glad I didn't put Bo Davis on that son of a gun.
I thought that you would have put Bo Davis on there and we would have argued over that one. I'm surprised.
Right,
I'm surprised he didn't end up on there.
Well, I would have, but I knew what would happen if I did. I mean,
yeah, too many LSU guys would have caused concern.
It would have caused the chaos, and you know why I didn't. But I'm going to be real with you. His position group this year is not going to be any good. I was out at practice all day Saturday. They got run over like a Mack truck. But
you lost all your top guys. Just as he's
that O-line is serious.
Yeah.
Write down Will Campbell and Emory Jones. By the way, they had a 6'8" right tackle and Tyree Adams clapping dudes on Saturday. Bottom line is, it might have not been Bo that I would have put up there either. It might have been Brad Davis, the LSU O-line coach. Bo Davis would be one thing. You better be glad I didn't go complete. Look, let me tell you something.
Yeah, you could have gone all LSU. I was kind of I was fully thought that there were going to be 2 to 3 LSU guys on this list. I'm proud of you.
Not Bo Davis. It was more Brad Davis that I almost put on there. I do think it's something to be said, Joe, that he has gotten. I think this will be year 4 where he's gotten at least 1 5-star offensive lineman. I mean, Joe, next year they're going to start their O-line, okay, where, Joe, he's going to have 4 dudes drafted. 4 guys are going to get drafted from next year's class, and that is incredible. He got 5-star in Weston Davis this past year. He got Zalance Hurd, okay, that went to Tennessee. The problem with that is I think that had a little bit more to do with money more than Brad Davis. Still recruited him, still brought him in. I could have had that debate. But the reason I would have put Bo was mainly because, hey, Texas made the playoffs this year, didn't they?
Yeah, that D-line was
What was their best position group?
It was the D-line. I will give credit for that one because there was a lot of rawness in the group that he fits in he'd be top 10. He would absolutely be top 10.
Fair. That's fair. Anybody else that comes to mind that maybe we left off this list before we get to Caleb Williams?
Not that I can think of. A lot of guys have moved around. I think that's probably. I mean, like I thought of, like when I think O-line, like I immediately think of Sharon Moore, and obviously he can't be picked for this because he's a head coach now. There's a lot of movement, so it was a little tricky to put this together.
In a lot of fairness, the number one, O-line coach in the country right now that's just a position coach is Brad Davis. That's not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who else I'd put up there. So
yeah, I mean, but there's not. I mean, you could say I'm biased all the live long day. I'm not being biased. I do think Brian Kelly's got something to do with that because he's recruited well on that position group wherever he's gone. We'll see. All right, you want to get this Caleb Williams thing?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Go over, by the way, to our good friends over at Home Field Apparel. We're not going to play the commercial here because we're kind of limited on time. Use the promo code Ruffino Joe. If you want LSU gear, you want Notre Dame gear, you want Ohio State gear, whatever gear you need, you can go get it over at Home Field Apparel. Use that promo code Ruffino Joe. That's Ruffino Joe. And Joe, we get 15% off. Oh,
yeah, you get 15% off. Hey, March Madness is still going on. I keep seeing the ads during the games.
I want an Oakland shirt. Well, you know what I really want?
I don't think they make Oakland shirts.
You know what I really want? I want an NC State shirt now.
What, for DJ Burns?
For DJ Burns.
We got to get you one.
He's an offensive tackle playing center in March Madness.
That kid needs to be playing football. Someone needs to call that kid and to get him to play football.
I agree. Yeah, I think he'd be a stud. All right, you ready to get to this Caleb Williams thing?
Yeah, let's do it.
Joe, yesterday I said something that now sparked a debate. Even though that we're a college football show, now I guess we got to talk about Caleb Williams because, ironically, I said that he was a bust. I will give you the floor as a guy that does so much in the draft, and you watch so much film on these guys. I will give you the first crack at this, but I do believe that Caleb Williams, the USC quarterback, is going to be a bust.
Look, I understand some of the aspects of his game that might turn people away, and even some aspects of his personality that certainly turn people away. But I think that naturally, and I'm not trying to get super in the weeds on prospect analysis. I'm not going to do that on this show. I think that it has become difficult to separate the way that he has acted in certain scenarios and the way that the media and social media constantly overreacts to his actions. The perception of who he is as a person has diluted and has also negatively influenced our thoughts on him as a prospect. I also think that just because he has a couple off scenarios of the nail painting with the F teams putting fuck whoever they're playing on his nails, the crying, the sulking on the bench, those things aren't great. I understand that. But most people you talk to or who know him, I have a lot of individuals or somebody I know that was close to the Oklahoma football program. He is a great leader. He is a great young man. And I think that he has the physical tools that are impossible to come by. Impossible. He could throw from any platform. It doesn't matter where he is. He could throw completely across the field while he's off balance and leaning and just trying to find the next closest receiver. He needs refinement. He needs to be worked on. But the arm strength, the mobility, the athleticism is not something that we find often in NFL draft prospects. And he's landing in a perfect scenario that has a ton of draft picks and an opportunity to hit the ground running. Caleb Williams is going to be a good pro. And he might be one of the better first overall picks that we've seen in the past 10 years because of the situation that he's being handed.
All right. Here is the massive problem with everything that you just said.
Okay.
I could agree with you 1,000% on everything that you just said. And quite honestly, can I be honest? I do think from a physical aspect, you're not necessarily wrong. But everything that you just said has to come with a but. You can't overlook what he has done on and off the field. You can't. When you're talking about, you could do that if you're talking about receiver. You can do that if you're talking about DB, O-line, D-line. That's fine. He's not any of those things. He's a quarterback, a leader of men. And Joe, to be real with you, of all people you should know, go pop in that Notre Dame film. You know, we go after guys like, and we did this last night with J.J. McCarthy, but we do this like with Jaden Daniels. Well, Jaden Daniels had a very interesting game versus Florida State. How many interesting games does Caleb Williams get before we look at him like he did against Notre Dame last year? Joe, you know, and I know this is the truth. There were multiple games on the field last year where he tried to play me, be all about me. I'm going to improvise and make it look good for me. He plays me ball. Joe, when you're running air raid principles and you don't run the system, everything else around you collapses. I played in the system. Like the system that I played in college was an air raid system. And Hal Mummy, God bless his soul, okay, every time he watches Caleb Williams play, he's got to be throwing a remote at the TV. Because when you are running those type of principles and you play me ball, it doesn't benefit anybody. And it's why I believe that Miller Moss will have a lot. Actually, the team will have more success, maybe because Miller Moss runs through the system. He is a me person. Joe, I could look, this is just me. I don't want my quarterback on the cover of GQ wearing a dress. It's cool if Dennis Rodman does it. It's not cool when MJ does it. So you can't just overlook everything that he's done with the fingernails, crying in the stands, some of the stuff that he was getting into it with the media. Like, because he was in LA and it's on the West Coast and it didn't go viral, or how do I want to say this? Casual football fans didn't see a lot of his media tour. And he says, this is about me. What do you like? I'll show up when I want to show up. You cannot be that way. And what's crazy about this is so many people got on the guys like Cam Newton for having some of those same type of qualities, but yet we don't go at Caleb Williams. Why is that?
Well, that was 10 years ago when Cam Newton was coming up in the NFL,
But
so that is a very different time.
Why are we, comparing him to guys like Mahomes?
Because physically, he plays similar to Mahomes. He plays like a point guard. Look, I understand the concerns that you're bringing up. And when he played like shit against Notre Dame and the times that he played bad against UCLA and other games is because he tried to be Michael Jordan. He tried to be LeBron. He tried to just say, I'm going to do all this. I'm going to make these crazy throws. And he constantly tries to find the home run. I get that. But in the NFL, he's going to have an offensive coordinator, a head coach, veteran receivers in their 30s and late 20s, and offensive linemen that have been around.
Do you think that he cares?
They're going to hold him accountable.
No, they're
won't. Absolutely. Yes, they will. Yes, they will. My argument is him landing in Los Angeles and playing for Lincoln Riley was obviously good for him to win the Heisman, but Lincoln Riley clearly had no intention of holding him accountable on the field and anything that he did. He was in a situation that enabled him.
That's fair.
And I would argue for a young man who's in his early 20s, I think anyone in their early 20s, and I'm close enough to that to remember that I was a jackass and that I thought that I knew everything. And that the minute you step into a work environment, when somebody in their 50s who's your boss tells you to stop being a jackass, that resonates with you. And yeah, maybe he could continue to be a dick. And I don't disagree. If things don't work out, it's going to be because he is an asshole and he is difficult to work with. But I am optimistic because he's young that he is going to mature and he is going to be fine on and off the field. This isn't like Johnny Manziel, who's going and doing coke at bars and being effed up all night because he's a party animal. Caleb Williams, I think, is a little bit more of a...
No, but we've seen quarterbacks like Jay Cutler have all the tools and ability in the world.
That's fair.
And because of off-the-field issues, they are busts.
That's fair.
And I think Jay Cutler is a bust.
Yeah.
Like I legit,
you had a mentality problem. That's the floor of this situation.
Right. So I'm just not with it. Joe, let me say this, the last thing that we got to say, because we got to roll here. Joe, I was very expressive in some things that I said about him. Remember last offseason? Remember him liking our tweets and being that petty? It told me everything that I needed to know. And I never attacked the kid's character. I'm not really attacking his character. All I'm saying is you got to mature, as my grandma would say, mature. Okay? I'm just not there. I'm not there with him. I can't get there with him until he shows me that he can be more mature.
All right. That's fair.
He's a bust. USC quarterbacks. I mean, I would have thought you would hate USC quarterbacks, how much they gave Notre Dame.
Well, I mean, I can't be that biased.
You that's a first. All right, we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Y'all have a good one. Come over to AYS episode 900. We will welcome all of y'all there. Y'all have a good night. Peace.